So, let's start this series off with a bang. Today I'm going to be talking about the fates of Turlraghh. Turlraghh, again, is a D&D setting that I created a while ago. It's a homebrew D&D setting with homebrew classes. It also has regular classes. It's a whole thing. It's a living world where a bunch of players are managing to live their best lives. It's also one of the reasons why my videos haven't been the best videos lately, because I've been mostly just spending time working on eight. I think I have eight current campaigns happening. I could be filming those and then putting those online, but then that would be putting pressure on the players themselves, and I don't want to do that. I might do something like that for like maybe a solo campaign idea I have or such, but let's focus on the fates. You see, inside of the world of Turlraghh, the gods are all dead. During the Cataclysm, the main event that occurred is that the gods, their names, their faces, their basic idea of them was basically erased from most people's minds. Only thing that's left behind are those who are truly worshipping them with their lives, having the semblance of what they used to be in their head still. So, if for an example, someone was a devout worshiper of Tiamat, the dragon, then maybe they would know, oh, it was a dragon. Maybe they'll know the basic tenets of Tiamat, but they wouldn't know the name Tiamat. They wouldn't know the figure Tiamat. They likely wouldn't be able to really even tell what gender Tiamat was. They would just be able to have this idea vaguely of what Tiamat stood for and would be able to worship the idea of Tiamat, which is a degree of separation that would leave the god basically dead. Because if you don't know this, in D&D, the way gods die isn't physical. You could physically kill a god, quote unquote. It would more or less just knock them out, though. To kill a god, you have to kill every single person who believes in them. They have to have no one believing in them, and that belief being drained from the body would lead to a final death of sorts. So if I wanted to kill any god, I would have to do that. How did this happen? Well, that's where we get to the overgod named Io. Io is in D&D very much not used. It is a meta concept of sorts. The idea of Io is that it is the thing that is the creator of all gods or the manager of all gods, and at one point in actual D&D lore did cause the gods to become mortal and push them into the mortal plane until they learned a lesson. I wanted to take it a step further and say what would happen if Io decided to just vanish the gods, make it so that the gods were no longer able to be remembered. Uh, he wouldn't, Io wouldn't take away this memory from every single person. They wouldn't want to kill this idea because some people kind of live their lives by it. So, because of this weird obsession with keeping humans and mortals into a better ideal, they still have the semblance of them, but wouldn't remember them. So the gods are basically dead. The mortals wouldn't necessarily know about all this. They just know that one day suddenly, oh, the person I was worshiping, I don't remember their face or name. What's going on? And then the demons came, and that screwed a lot of people. Now, the fates, which is the topic of the series I'm going to be creating, where I'm going to go into each one individually, are what come up after the gods have all been dismissed. You see, Io is an interesting person. They have a balancing act of sorts where certain actions will occur, certain capabilities occur. And one of the such things would be there has to be some level of power, something out there that has the abilities there, a divine spark or multiple sparks that could exist. And I made it so that for Turlraghh, in this situation, those divine sparks were released into different planes that may or may not exist in D&D, some of which do and some which don't. And as such, I made it so that when people decided to have those situations occur, right? When divine sparks were released, certain beings were able to find them and ascend. Not necessarily being gods, but getting godlike power, which would allow them to start gaining believers, which would in turn make them into gods. The process of which is something that I'm not sure how thorough it had been discussed, but I find it an interesting process to say the least. So the fates basically are different people from different planes of existence that have this divine spark in them that allow them to have godlike power. Specifically, the fates mostly started off kind of just like whispers. People didn't really know what the fates were. And then, after some time was given, the fates began to have, how you say, the fates were given more power because people started to believe in what the whispers were, which were basically saying these way the stars move correspond with your fate. If you are born underneath certain stars, it determines how you are as a person. That's right, the fates are basically horoscopes. So each of the fates are actually corresponded to a horoscope that were helped. This design of which was helped by my fiance. She was the one who mostly linked up which fate to which horoscope and wrote the descriptions of which. She took my main archetypes that I was thinking of. So for an example, I said I want to have a scholar, I want to have the king, I want to have the slave, I want to have the healer. And she said, I can make those fit with different horoscopes. Let me go ahead and try to do that. And she did. And she drew basically every single one of them. The only one she hasn't drawn yet is the scholar, but that'll come when we feel like doing it. Either way, each of these fates have like a backstory to them, and they used to be mortals. They are mortals who gain the power of a god, basically, and are trying to gain more power by having people believe in them. The more souls they can collect, the more power they can have as well. So, many of them become warlock patrons, but you can technically get clerics, you can get paladins for you. So, that's what the fates are in a general sense. They're basically horoscopes given sentience, and people worship them because they started as whispers that gave people power, and over time, when they started to get a belief system towards them, they made it reality. Where, let's say that you were born under the swordsman, now you are stronger or faster because you were just born underneath the stars. Does that mean that you would follow this horoscope? Not necessarily. It's literally like a horoscope. It's mostly just words. But the difference is you do still gain physical traits. So kind of is becoming a reality thing. When I go into these more in detail, I'm planning to do this every week, but we'll see. Work has been very busying, so it's been harder to make videos. But every week from this point, I'm going to try to go into depth about each of the fates. I'll go into how do you say? I'll go into more about what they are, what plane they come from, and I might go into some spoiler territory, which I'll warn players before they watch the video uh, about that as well. All right, so I think that is good for now. That is good for this one. I am rather exhausted from today's work, and I have D&D stuff to plan out still. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this brief on fates, and I hope you're looking forward to learning about each of the fates. I think the first one I want to do has to be the king, because he's the king, baby. See you next time.